Hi everyone, my name is Bethlehem Tashomi. I took an engaging class about the brain over the summer, and I was hoping to discuss with you the subject of drugs, more specifically the scientific study of drugs, known as pharmacology. So, pharmacology, it dives into the science behind how drugs are created, composed, and how they affect the way our bodies function. The amount of the drug that's consumed is ultimately going to affect how much the drug affects us. Fun fact, pharmakon is actually the Greek root of the word pharmacology, and it means medicine and poison, which checks out because medicine can be poisonous in larger doses. I feel like everything about pharmacology has to do with doses, so later we'll talk about some psychoactive drugs that affect our consciousness, our perception, and other mental experiences too. Some psychoactive drugs are caffeine and nicotine. These are drugs that cross the blood-brain barrier. The blood-brain barrier is a barrier of tightly joined blood vessels that it's a structure that our brains naturally use to make sure we have enough nutrients in our brain and protects us from toxins and infections. And yeah, it pretty much protects us in so many different ways. The most insane thing I learned is that one of the most poisonous substances can actually be found in the waters that we as humans visit daily, in fresh waters and subtropical waters or deep seas. Salamanders in fresh waters, pufferfish living in subtropical waters, and blue-eyed octopuses that can be found in the deep seas of Japan or southern Australia. They all have tetrodotoxin in their bodies. These creatures hold a lethal poison, and when that poison is released in a victim, it blocks the cells in our brain from communicating, processes that our brain would naturally do on autopilot. Our sensory signals would be off in our brain and our muscles, and it'll cause us to feel numb. Being that this is one of the most lethal venoms, it's crucial that it's pumped out of our stomachs within 24 hours. The consumption of charcoal can help with a tetrodotoxin victim because the consumption of charcoal will actually allow the toxins to bind to it, and then it makes the removal process of the toxin a lot easier. The consumption of charcoal, like worst case scenarios, involve paralysis, suffocation, and death. Keeping up with the theme of being found naturally, plants naturally found in Earth can also produce effects that cross the blood-brain barrier, like in the Atropa belladonna plants that have atropine, or areca nuts found in the seeds of the areca catechu palm trees in Southeast Asia. The areca nut is used for mental stimulation and relaxation, and then atropine can be used during eye exams to dilate the pupils to help with eye swelling and inflammation, or it can be used with gastrointestinal problems like diarrhea or spastic colon. Larger doses of atropine can cause hallucinations, disorientation, confusion, or amnesia. Chamomile, found in the Camellia sinensis plant, or cannabis commonly known as THC, are also examples of plants that cross the blood-brain barrier and affect our physiological function. Chamomile, which often comes in the form of teas, can help create a sedative effect or a sleep-inducing effect. So it is great before bed. And if I didn't stress dosage enough, the severity of the drug is going to change based on how much is consumed. Another great example of this is cannabis. It can create a sedative effect after crossing the blood-brain barrier as well. Psychoactive drugs range from caffeine, cocaine, alcohol, to nicotine. These are all drugs that cross the blood-brain barrier, and when that brain barrier gets hit with caffeine, for example, it blocks the adenosine receptors, the signals responsible for drowsiness. Caffeine does a really good job of blocking those receptors, so it makes us feel, alert, awake, the complete opposite of sleepy or tired. The effects of cocaine can be felt when cocaine blocks the communication of a dopamine signal from being completed. Dopamine gives us that rewarding feeling. So chemically, cocaine blocks that feeling from leaving the brain, and then it increases the concentration of dopamine in our brain. Alcohol, once crossing the blood-brain barrier, can enhance one's mood. But again, in larger doses, it can change the way that makes us feel. With alcohol poisoning, large doses can cause someone to suffocate, slip into a coma, or pass away. And nicotine is a drug that works by crossing the blood-brain barrier within 10 to 20 seconds after being inhaled. In smaller amounts, it works as a stimulant or aids in anti-anxiety, but in larger amounts, nicotine shifts from a stimulant to a sedative. And that's the end of this topic conversation piece on the study of drugs and how they affect the way we function. I hope it was just as engaging and digestible as our professor lectured. And yeah, hope you learned something fun or interesting. Take care.